What is up, everybody? Um, going to be doing some Q&A on NFL draft stuff. Literally anything when it comes to prospects, when it comes to the combine coming up, who I think is going to be doing well at the combine, all that stuff, even some basketball stuff, but more just a Q&A. I haven't done a live in so long, so I figured why not just do one right now. And then, yeah, so we'll be discussing all that stuff. And I plan to go live. I want to get to the point where I can go 3 times a week with long form content like Q&As, informational stuff about some prospects. And I'll probably start off with some informational stuff about some of the guys I like a lot before we have any questions here. And I'm going to start off with Derek Harmon because I feel like he's still getting a little bit disrespected. Like PFF moved him up on his board, on their board a little bit, but he's still, I think, the 9th player in the draft. I have him rated as, and I really think that he can be an excellent, excellent, excellent player in the National Football League. He was first in pressures last season at Oregon. He was, by the way, if you see me looking over here, it's because I'm looking at the TikTok comments don't show up here. So like that's why I keep looking at that because I'm streaming on Twitter or X rather, YouTube and TikTok. Walter Nolan is the best defensive tackle in the class. Carey says he certainly has the twitchiness. He has the body, as the build, the self-proclaimed next Aaron Donald, he calls himself. But I like Harmon a little more. Like you can't teach the college production. Like so many times, people get infatuated with just like twitchiness and freaky athleticism. This isn't to say that Nolan didn't have a productive career. He obviously did. But Derek Harmon and Mason Graham literally dominated in college football. Harmon, like I mentioned, first in pressures last season for defensive tackles, second overall over the past 2 seasons. Havoc rate was second among defensive tackles. Nolan wasn't even top 3 in any of those categories. Now, I'm not saying he can't. Like Nolan's a bad example. The guy everyone's going to be in love with is Shamar Stewart. He's going to test off the charts at the combine in every single shape, way, or form. And the issue with Shamar Stewart is he didn't produce in college. Now, maybe if he's a 99th percentile athlete, there's, you can see past that. But some people mock him up to, 11. Yeah, Nolan's production is great, but he didn't produce as much as Derek Harmon and Mason Graham, is my point. And that's why I think Derek Harmon's a little bit, I would just say, underappreciated through this process. But for sure, Shamar Stewart's a guy that scouts are going to fall in love with because of the twitchiness, but he didn't produce in college at all. So you're going to see a ton of that at the combine. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Arian Smith ran the fastest 40 time ever and beat Xavier Worthy's. But that doesn't mean that he deserves to be all of a sudden, first, second round pick. He just is not as good of a receiver as the other guys and the other prospects. Combine really is great for the guys we didn't see a lot of college production with. Like it's great for Shamar Stewart. It's great for, Nick Skeleton. It's great for guys like that. Isaiah Bond, who will undoubtedly run under a 4.3 probably. Great for him because he didn't produce at Texas last season. And for guys like Mason Graham and Will Johnson, the blue chip guys, it's not like as great, right? Like Derek Harmon, like you can just turn on the college tape and it's there. And that's part of the reason why Shedeur Sanders didn't want to do that. Because I don't think people realize Shedeur, I wouldn't say he would have gotten exposed, but he would have had a tough time comparable in terms of arm talent to Jackson Darden if Cam Ward decided to throw there too, because Jackson's going to throw. And the issue is with Shedeur is that, he played in the Big 12, really no competition. No offense. I don't think the Big 12 is, it's barely a basketball conference now. It's just Houston. But for football specifically, they would get drilled by any legitimate teams. ASU was the only team that was competitive against Texas, against a real team. BYU, I guess, could be more competitive. But the tape is fine. Like I'm not saying Shedeur is a bad prospect. It's just he made the right decision not throwing at the combine. He would have gotten exposed. Dart probably could have eclipsed him on a lot of people's boards if he had decided to go to the combine. And we'll see how he does his pro day. I'm sure he looks fantastic in his own environment and all that. And I still think Shedeur probably goes 3 to the Giants, if I had to guess, at this moment in time. We have a question here on TikTok. Do you think there's a chance that the Bills draft a safety in round one? It's possible. Like, look, I think a guy like Makuba from Texas is going to move up. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. I mean, no one helped their cause as much as those two guys with secondary players in terms of the college football playoff. And I think the big thing is though with the safety position is the only first round guy I see there other than Malachi Starks is the kid from South Carolina. I call him a kid. I'm 26, but basically, I don't know why I call these guys kids, but he's like 22. But the guy from South Carolina, I can't really pronounce his last name, but the tape's off the charts. I think he's going to be very good, and he's going first round in a lot of people's minds. But if we have any questions, make sure to just keep asking. Here's some chats. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I know it's weird. These lives get super it's weird because in fantasy football season, when I start doing fantasy football content, it's like I can't get a word in edgewise. It's just answering questions. There's thousands of people on my lives. And now I like it more because we can have more in-depth conversations and analysis and talking about these prospects and stuff during NFL draft because it's not as busy. It's not as many people on these lives. Bills draft Nick in the first and Higgins in the second. Yeah, it's possible. CJ, I like the Higgins stuff a lot. Are you talking about Jaden Higgins? Yeah, I have him ranked 22nd in this class overall. I think he's the third best receiver if we count Hunter as more than just a receiver, fourth if we count Hunter as a receiver. But I think Trav can play both and will play both in the NFL. And right now, I don't think people realize if this is true, like the Raiders are legitimately considering moving up in the draft to 1 and they take Ward and Sanders goes at 3 and Carter, let's say, goes at 2. The Patriots, their best case scenario being Travis Hunter, he would be able to play both sides for that team. I really think so at a high level. Obviously, they have Christian Gonzalez defensively. Another corner like Hunter would completely terrorize defenses, with that secondary. And then you'd give Drake May an option at quarterback, that he can throw to a receiver. So like Pop Douglas is fine. Some of those guys are fine. They might go Will Campbell, but if Travis Hunter's there at 4, they're going to go Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. You think of Mecca or Higgins? Who's better? I like both a lot. I've gotten a bad reputation for being a Mecca hater because I have him behind Jaden Higgins. I just think of Mecca, he's like a discount JSN, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, he's just not Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I think everyone kind of makes it seem like because they won the championship and it was super easy and there was a lot of pressure off of him because Jeremiah Smith was there last season at Ohio State, that all of a sudden he's this amazing wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. He's not better than Luther Burden, for sure. He's not better than Ted McMillan. And I don't think personally he's better than Jaden Higgins. I think, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, two of the most underrated receivers in the draft, they made Rocco Beck look like the second coming of Christ. I've said this 1,000 times. I said it in videos. Like, it was like Christ resurrected when Rocco Beck was playing quarterback with those two guys. Like, it was ridiculous. It was a mismatch nightmare all over the Big 12. Jaden Higgins at worst is Michael Pittman Jr., in my opinion. And we'll see what he runs. Let's see what he does at the combine. I mean, I'm going to try and come out with more content on X. And, in the next few days, more written content. I really have to get better at that. I really have to make more written content. But, I think Jaden Higgins is the real deal. I can pull up some advanced metrics for you guys on Jaden Higgins. I'm going to make a whole video about him. But yeah, I mean, he obviously off the top of my head, 6'4", 215, excellent hands, contested catchability, vertical threat. A lot of people say Michael Pittman Jr. He reminds me a lot of Nico Collins, a lot. I think that the movement patterns are very similar. Like, catches everything, good with the ball in his hands, 6'4", 215, 220. Very silky, smooth route runner. I think he has it all. I think people give me a bad reputation, like bad rap for like not liking Emeka Egbuka. It's not like I don't like him. I like Emeka a lot. I think he's a first rounder. I think he should be a first rounder. I just like Jaden Higgins more. Let's see. We have more questions here. Okay, yeah. You like Jacob Parrish? Yeah, I do. And Tez Johnson, good fit for the Bills. Tez is $150. That's the problem. Jacob Parrish, I haven't watched a lot of tape on, to be honest. Is that the receiver from Kansas State? Jacob Parrish, or the corner from Kansas State. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him, honestly. So I don't know why I said receiver. Oh, it's because we were talking about receivers. But I mean, I'd have to look into it. But I do like him. But again, I'm specifically talking about receivers right now. That's why I thought, Braden, that's why I thought you were talking about, like, I was like, Jacob Parrish isn't a receiver. Am I tripping? He's a corner, right? And I looked him up and I was like, yeah, this is definitely the guy I was thinking about because we were talking about receivers. You think Tez is a good fit for the Bills? Yeah, I brought that one up. Again, he's a $150. It scares me a little bit. It scares me. Now, Nate Wiggins did well at corner last year at a $170, but still, one hit and your season's over. Like, look what happened to Tank Dell. That's what scares me. CJ says Golden Emeka tied for me. Maybe Emeka a little bit better. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Golden's good. I think Golden's such a Raven. If I had to guess, that would be kind of the team that I think pulls the trigger on Matthew Golden. Obviously, insane separator. That's the issue. I mean, that's not an issue with him. I just don't think he's as good of a route runner as a Mecca. Not as big, obviously. He's only 6 feet as Jaden Higgins or Trey Harris. But I do think Golden's perfect fit as the Ravens. They want a vertical threat who has insane separation numbers. They want like a complement to Zay Flowers. I think Golden can be that for sure. James Pierce Jr. has Eagles written all over him. That's unfortunate. I really hope not, but it does seem like it's trending toward James Pierce dropping. In my latest mock that I'm gonna come out with Monday after the combine that you guys should be prepared for. I believe I have James Pierce at 8 to Carolina. I think he can be very, very good with Carolina. I do. It says, look, PFF thinks they need specifically D line, not an edge rusher. They need someone to replace Brian Burns. They really do. They didn't really have anybody last season that could do that. Sure, Tet McMillan's an option. I actually think Tet goes higher if the Raiders trade up to 1. I can see Tet going at 5 to Jacksonville or 6 to Tennessee. If Tennessee trades back and the Raiders get that first pick and, obviously the future first. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see it. It's wild that Rob Gronkowski, by the way, might return to the NFL, huh? That's kind of crazy. And I'll come out with my whole board soon. I'm really making it on Google Drive right now, but on like Sheets rather than Excel. I don't like Excel. Plus, I got rid of the document since I don't work in finance. Like, I got rid of it completely in general. Just use Google Sheets or whatever. Maybe I might still have Excel, but I'm working on it for sure. So it'll come out in a few days. But I want to see how the combine goes first. Do I only do draft prospects or free agents? No, I do it all, man. I'm going to come out with some free agency predictions. That's my goal post combine, is to come out with videos like that. I primarily, during fantasy football season, I do fantasy football, and then I kind of turn into a chameleon in the off season. Like, I'll do NFL draft, trades, free agency. I'll even do NBA because I don't think anybody realizes I started out as an NBA creator. 2-3 years ago when I first started this page. Obsessed with basketball. I played basketball and baseball. I did not play football past 14, 15. Just a huge fan of football. Actually, my mom would not let me play football. So my brother got like a serious injury, and she's like, "Nah, you're sticking to baseball and basketball." But I do love football. But basketball was probably my first love with baseball. Let's see. Is there any hope for the Vegas Raiders franchise? Yeah, I mean, look, I think if they get Cam Ward, that's the type of quarterback they need. Shador might even be good in Vegas because I feel like he can handle the media and stuff like that and all the expectations. I just don't think Shador is the type of guy Pete Carroll likes. Like, he likes guys with insane arm talent, like downfield passing. Like, Cam Ward and Jackson Dart fit that more than Shador. And it's not to say Shador has a bad arm. He has a good arm. I just think he's more accurate, more composed, more like he fits definitely like a New York Giants type of quarterback, if I had to guess. Yeah. But I do think, I mean, there's hope. They should trade up to 1, though. I don't think staying at 6 is the right move. And if they stay at 6, I want them to draft Ashton Genty. I don't want them to draft a quarterback at that point. Let's see. What's your favorite football team? I'm a diehard 49ers fan. Yeah. I have a weird weird set of teams. So my dad grew up partly in the Bay Area and partly in Anaheim. So unfortunately, I'm an Angels fan too, not a Dodgers fan, but I'm a diehard Lakers, Angels, and 49ers fan. But the Angels suck. So I don't even talk about baseball like that anymore. I covered the team last year for the Sporting Tribune, and I was there at a lot of games, but they're just so bad, man. It's just tough. Like obviously, as a journalist, I covered the games and I did it with bias aside, but it's just really hard seeing them lose every single game. Let me see. Grant, NBA better. Yeah, dude, Grant, you need to hop on this live, bro. You need to get off work and just hop on the live with me right here to do like basically a former BSD show right now. Do you think Ashton Genty has CMC or Derrick Henry potential? Yeah, he could be Derrick Henry. Not to the level. I mean, Ashton Genty's 5'9". He's not 6'3". So, well, I'm not going to disrespect Derrick Henry like that, but I do think he has Pro Bowler written all over him almost right away. Basically, generational talent. Yeah, I do think so. I also think like there's 5 or 6 amazing running backs in this draft that can be Pro Bowlers. So I don't think it's wise for a team like let's say Genty falls to 9-10, right? You're the Bears. Like the Bears have other like they can get Trevion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins in round 2 and still get a lineman in round 1. Yeah. So again, I think the Raiders though, they really need a running back like that, like a true sensational generational talent. Like that will help them dramatically. Do you think Bryce Young will be better than Stroud this year? Oh man, I don't know about that. I think Stroud has a bounce back year, but I could see it. I mean, he was better than him this year toward the end of the year. Again, I got a lot of flack for saying out of school. I'll stand on it. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Like I thought Bryce Young was a better prospect than CJ Stroud because he tore up the SEC in college. Like you know how hard that is. And CJ Stroud obviously had better arm, better quarterback build. He's 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", and Bryce isn't that. The Bryce's improvisational skills and ability to see the field, I thought would translate right away. And it's nice to finally see that gap, you know, if there was a redraft tomorrow, is closing in than before. It was just undoubtedly CJ. You know, I'm not saying I wouldn't take CJ in a redraft. I'm just saying like Bryce is kind of making that closer than a lot of people, you know, think. It's all about the Bengals. Dude, I wish the Bengals could actually do something and beat the Chiefs. Jesus Christ, do something already. Beat the Chiefs, please, dude. I'm sick and tired of the Chiefs. I just hope the Chiefs never win anything ever again. Not even one single playoff game. I'm so sick and tired of them. Like anybody, I just want a Super Bowl that isn't Eagles or Chiefs. Those are literally or Rams. Those are my 3 least favorite teams in the world, and those are the only teams that win Super Bowls apparently. So it sucks as a Niner fan when that happens. Thoughts on Jonah Coleman? Haven't seen a lot of tape with Jonah Coleman. Is that it's the Washington running back, right? Yeah. Haven't seen him play almost at all. I don't think I watched a single Washington game last year, if I'm being honest with you guys. I've seen a few vids on him on YouTube, but I mean, this is such a deep class that I don't think he gets drafted first off, and I haven't seen him really high on anybody's board. He declared for the draft. I didn't even know he was declared. Is he a senior? He's a junior. Yeah. I mean, let's see. Did he even declare? I haven't read anything about him. Yeah, he returned to school, didn't he? Yeah, he's going back to school. Okay, for sure. I was tripping for a sec. I was like, I've seen vids on him in college, but I didn't see any news about. I would know about him if he declared for the draft. Let's see. How do you feel about if the 49ers draft a running back late? They need to. I don't think they're going to draft one late. If you want me to be quite frank, I think the 49ers draft a running back as early as round 2 or 3. Yeah. I think Devin Neal's definitely a guy they could take. Ollie Gordon, like those guys in that realm. RJ Harvey, Jarquez Hunter, guys like that. Like they could definitely take those guys. I think they should. I mean, CMC is getting older. Who knows if he'll ever be the same? I hope he is. I hope he has a few good years left. But yeah, Let's see. Ollie Gordon, the best running back in the draft. I don't like Ollie Gordon. The metrics are horrible. I know he had a bad O line last year, and he had a pretty good season. I mean, he had an excellent season 2 years ago. I just don't love him as a prospect. I think his vision's bad comparatively to other running backs. Look, I could be absolutely wrong. I'm not saying like I have it all figured out as an evaluator, as a scout, as an evaluator. I'm not a scout. I'm a novice at evaluating, or at least maybe I'm intermediate now since I've been doing it for a few years. But it's not like it's not like any even scouts, like we don't know the be all end all. I just don't think Ollie Gordon is that good. You're a UNC fan, Amari and Hampton, ideal fit Chargers. Yeah, I can see, they I feel like the Chargers are going to opt for a guy like Henderson, who's kind of quicker, not as much of a bell cow running back, but a guy that can catch passes. I think it's going to fit the future of their offense more. I don't love how Harbaugh's teams love to just pound the rock. Like, obviously, Hampton's probably a better fit now. I think Henderson would open up way more for that offense. So I like both. I think they're going to take a running back, whether it's round 1 or round 2, but I can definitely see it happening soon, like at pick 22, especially if Loveland's gone. Like, if Denver takes Loveland at 20 and Warren's obviously going to go top 15, like, I think his floor is the Colts. I don't see him falling past that. Yeah, I don't know. And also for the guy who asked about the 49er question, I do think the 49ers could take Ty Warren at 11, and I would not be mad. I know they have offensive line, defensive line issues. You can get that figured out in free agency. Imagine if they had George Kittle, Tyler Warren, 2 tight end sets. Like, that's great. And Warren could learn from George Kittle. I don't know. Kyle is always tantalized by wide receivers and tight ends that can help. Like, I don't think like we should expect the Niners, by the way, to go into next season with Ayuk. Well, basically Ayuk's not going to play till October. Jennings, Pearsall, and Cowling as their playmakers, and Kittle, right? They're going to get another playmaker in round 1 or 2, minimum round 3. Like, I would not be shocked if they take Burden or Warren at 11. Burden would be a perfect fit because he could play the Debo role. He's a yak monster. I think the best yak prospect we've ever seen. He broke like 30 tackles last season, which is obviously a college football record for the amount of games he played. But he's the man. In open field, he's unstoppable. Do you have any more questions there? Let's see. I know it's odd doing a live at 11:22 is what I'm doing it at. But by the way, if y'all like more hot takes, less because this page, I speak my mind, but I go off the rails completely on Cold Tub Confessions. You guys should check that out. That Memphis take hurt my soul, though. I don't know if I even really believe that Memphis is a title contender. But you guys should check out Cold Tub Confessions. It's next up. It's the cool concept, something I've been working on for a year. So y'all should check that out. Let's see. Have I done an apology video for my Jaden Daniels slander yet? What slander? That I think Drake May and Caleb Williams were better prospects than Jaden Daniels? I still think they were. Now in a redraft tomorrow, Jaden Daniels goes number 1. But it's 1 year. RG3 was the best quarterback of Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, and RG3 after 1 year, and he didn't end up being the best player. He got hurt. Now Daniels, of course, excellent player. I don't think I was slandering him. I don't know where that's coming from. Just because I think I would have picked Caleb Williams or Drake May before Jaden Daniels means I was slandering him. At least I'm honest. Let's see. What's up, dude? What's up, Chris? Myles Garrett to Buffalo? I can see it for sure. Yeah, I can see it for sure. Myles Garrett could definitely go to Buffalo. What do I think the Browns are going to do? What do I think they should do, or what do you think they will do? Because it's 2 separate questions. I think they draft Abdul Carter if he's there too. Myles Garrett, regardless. I know they have Myles right now, but regardless whether they have Myles Garrett next season or not, I think him and Carter, or just Carter alone, would solve a lot of issues. Then yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the inevitable thing that they do at 2. I can see him trading back up into the first round for Jackson Dart, and I think they should. Like, if he's available later, I would trade pick 33 and a future second to trade back up into the first round. toward the later end of the draft if Dart is still there, because then Dart can play quarterback there next season. You still have Watson, and you could play Watson. I know he's hurt, but like you could bring in a veteran, play the veteran, and have Dart learn. Like you don't need to play him right away. And then you have Carter and Dart. I think that would be a solid draft, even if they do nothing else and just get a bunch of other guys. But it's tough. I mean, the Browns defense needs to be better. Schwartz, obviously one of the best DCs in the league. But last year was a really rough year. They just need to be healthier, and it's a tough division. Let's see, who's my surprise team next year? Probably, that's a tough one. It depends what Jacksonville does in the draft. I think Jacksonville can be really good if they get Will Johnson or Mason Graham, because I think they have the roster. I just think it's the coaching. Like I still think ETN can be a solid running back, or at least ETN Bigsby can be a solid duo. And you have Brian Thomas Jr., who's excellent. Trevor Lawrence. Even if they release Christian Kirk, you got Gabe Davis. I'm sure they'll get another receiver. And then if you add Graham, you're adding him to Trayvon Walker, right? And Josh Hines Allen. The secondary is horrible. So that's obviously an issue. I think Johnson could be the pick there instead of Graham specifically for that. But I think they're a sleeper team. I think the Giants will be way better. Yeah, I think the Giants will be way better too. But yeah, I mean, I'm still in on Trevor Lawrence. Like people, look, I'm a Niners fan. I would trade Brock Purdy and a second round pick for Trevor Lawrence in a heartbeat. Imagine Trevor Lawrence in Kyle Shanahan's offense. This is no shame on Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy is 6 feet tall, and there are some issues to that because he's not Lamar Jackson. He can run a little bit, doesn't have an excellent arm, but he's really good at reading defenses. But Trevor Lawrence is 6'6", prototypical size. Like if you put him on Kyle Shanahan's offense, I mean, they win numerous Super Bowls. I don't think people realize how an offensive play caller is more important, arguably, than the quarterback. Like I don't think people realize that. We've seen it on numerous occasions. Like Patrick Mahomes isn't Patrick Mahomes without Andy Reid. Is he even a top 5 quarterback without Andy Reid? Like that's a whole conversation. Like, yeah, probably, but Andy Reid makes Patrick Mahomes what he is. You know what I mean? Offensive play callers are imperative. I mean, Cliff was so important for Jaden last year. Ben will be important for Caleb, and I think Liam will be good for Trevor. Although I don't know how good Liam actually is. We don't know because they had Canales the year before, and then they had Liam, so it was a 1-year sample size. But he should be okay. Who should the Rams take at 3 after the Giants panic? You think the Giants are going to get Stafford and trade the 3rd overall pick? That's a lot for a 37-year-old. If the Rams were to acquire a top 3 pick, oh man, if they were to acquire that pick, they'd probably. That's tough, man, because I don't think Shador fits at all. It would have to be Cam Ward there. Like they would have to hope the Titans and Browns go up Carter Hunter or vice versa, because the Rams would not trade up for Shador Sanders. It would be for Ward, if anything. You're glad you realize how great Jaden is. Yeah, dude, Jaden is awesome. He's an awesome player. I mean, I probably was a little lower on him than I should have been. He had 2 elite receivers in college. I thought he was a little skinny and would get hurt, but he seems to have been healthy most of the time, and he's just really as talented as they come. Yeah. What team do you think Miles goes to, if I had to guess? Oh, man. If I had to guess, I could see Dallas or I can't see San Francisco. They don't want to give up a lot. Dallas or Buffalo probably for Myles Garrett if they do trade him. Panthers playoffs, I can see it. Yeah, I can see the Panthers making the playoffs for sure. It's possible next season. It's a weak division. I still think Tampa wins it, but it's certainly any of those teams have a shot. The Rams could, yeah. Look, if I'm Sean McVay, why not go get JJ McCarthy? Sean McVay can make any quarterback look good, similar to Kyle Shanahan and Kevin O'Connell, right? Like Kevin O'Connell comes from that tree, the Kyle Shanahan McVay tree. So if you get JJ, you're getting a 22-year-old quarterback versus Stafford, who's still top 6, 7. I think Stafford is a little bit underappreciated as what he's done and what he's done in big games recently, and especially his career on the Rams. Won a Super Bowl, played great against the Eagles in complete snow this past season. Did Cup was non-existent half the time, still was balling out. I do think that he deserves the 50 million over 2 years. I think for the quarterback position, I think it's important. I do think the Rams come to a conclusion that they will pay him. If they don't, JJ is a good guy to get, because then you're competitive for years. Because what is the plan after Matthew Stafford? Personally, why don't you just go get Joe Milton and see if you can develop a talent like that, or Anthony Richardson? Because maybe McVay is a guy that could actually figure that out, right? Like that's the big thing with McVay, is I think he's thinking long term. The Rams are not a dumb organization. I hate the Rams because I'm a Niners fan, but they're an incredibly smart organization. Les Snead is great. Sean McVay is great. And I think they're thinking long term. They're thinking long term. Sorry, I'm going to text. My girlfriend called me. Let me just tell her I'm on a live call you back. My bad. Because she kept calling me, kept interrupting the lives. But yeah, I mean, I still think they roll with Stafford. I don't think he goes anywhere. If I had to make an educated guess, I think they give him 50 million over 2 years and then kind of figure out their plan for the future. But it would be nice if they could get like a Joe Milton or an Anthony Richardson in a few years and be able to develop somebody like that. Well, I guess Joe Milton's 25. So at that point, he'd be like 27, 28. That probably wouldn't be ideal. But Richardson, you get Milton as a backup right now, probably. Yeah. Makes no sense to trade Stafford. Rams window still open. Yes, I do think it's open, but I do think, look, and of course there's bias in this take. I think people are writing off the Niners a little too much next season. I mean, they were hurt all year. Greenlaw was out all year. Ayuk was out pretty much all year. Debo was basically out all year because he was atrocious and couldn't beat man coverage to save his life. And they have the 11th overall pick. They have the easiest schedule in football next season by far. If they don't win 13 or 14 games, the 49ers next season, like Kyle Shanahan is on the hot seat. That's how easy their schedule is next season. I think the best team they play, besides the Rams, who are in their division, are the Texans. That's the best team they play. They don't play any of the big 5 teams like the Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Lions. Who am I forgetting? Eagles. Yeah, they don't play any of those teams. So, I mean, I think the Rams are kind of thinking like the Niners are still going to be back. We know Seattle's just going to be Seattle like they do every year. They're not going to improve. They'll be like 9 or 10 wins. They never do, and they never will with Geno at quarterback. Arizona is always going to be excuse my language, for lack of a better word, a shit show. Even with Jonathan Gannon, who I like as a head coach, they just don't have the talent to compete. And Kyler's kind of just mid. He has some games where he looks like a top 5 quarterback and other games where he looks like a bottom 5 quarterback, and that just doesn't play. I think, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Stafford should be retained, but I do think the Niners win that division next year. I wouldn't say easily. Like, I think there's 2 playoff teams. It'll be the Rams and the 49ers, but I think the 49ers will win that division. I wouldn't say handedly, but I think the Rams kind of know the Niners are have a really big year next year. And they're kind of planning for the future of like, how can we compete? Because Brock is what, 25? So I'm not a huge Brock guy, but he's good. And, once Stafford's gone, he's the best quarterback in the division. So what you're going to have to compete against him for 10 plus years, probably. I think that's kind of what they're thinking. They're not dumb. Like, they could win with JJ McCarthy at quarterback. Dude, we say that every year though, bro. Like, everyone says Seahawks are sneaky. Like, sure, but they don't have the quarterback to win games. Having a quarterback matters. You have to have a quarterback that can win big games. Like Geno at most can get you to the playoffs, can't win you a playoff game. Like, they need an interior offensive lineman. I do think I think they could draft Jackson Dart at 18. But yeah. You think they're definitely a playoff team? So 3 teams make the playoffs next year? Because the Niners are for sure making the playoffs unless they have catastrophic injuries again. Because their schedule is ridiculously easy. If they do not make the playoffs, Kyle Shanahan will be fired. How washed is Debo? He's washed. Yeah, pretty washed. He's pretty washed. Yeah. I mean, he might be good on the Commanders though, because they have a couple of guys that can beat man coverage, like Terry McLaurin, and Diami Brown. So the problem is the 49ers. The reason why Debo looked so bad is the 49ers didn't utilize Ricky Pearsall. And the issue with that is Ricky was the only guy who could beat man coverage on that team because Ayuk was out. So, Kittle's a tight end. Sure, he could do it a little bit, but he's more running seams a lot of the time. And Debo, like when Ayuk was on the field, it made Debo so much better because you could break, you could keep defenses honest downfield and still get the ball to Debo and he'd be more open. Without Ayuk, it was impossible. So I think Debo's washed in the sense like he's just played in so many games and the way he plays football, it's not a longevity thing with him. Like he played a whole nother season the last 4 years in the playoffs, like basically 10 games in the playoffs, right? That takes a toll on your body. We saw that with CMC. We saw that with now Debo. I'm surprised we haven't seen it with Kittle yet because Kittle's like an all-time great too. We saw it on Trent Williams this year, who was out most of the year as well. But yeah, the Commanders could get him. I think that'd probably be a decent fit. Ravens would be a good fit, I think, for Debo. Buffalo could be a good fit for Debo, a yards after catch kind of guy they could get. Because they have Shakir, who's really fast. They have Coleman, who's pretty fast, but he's more of a vertical threat. Like I think Debo could fit in there. Debo could also fit in on the Rams. I think, you have a few guys like DeMarcus. Well, I don't even know if DeMarcus Robinson's going to be back, to be honest. I don't know his contract situation. But Tutu is still on the team, right? Like he can kill man coverage. So you can keep defenses honest and he could be an option there. I don't know. He's a Seahawk killer, so that's the only time he plays well is against the Seahawks, which is like wild. He only plays well against the Seahawks and Eagles. But yeah, I would put up my new mock draft that I created in the background, but for whatever reason, I can't do it on Restream, which is why because I'm not just on TikTok. I'm streaming this on X and YouTube. So otherwise, I would have my newest mock draft in the back. I'll probably do a separate live solely on TikTok a bit later today where I can go through why I think the Raiders might trade up for the first overall pick and why I think Ward is probably going to go 1 now, if I had to guess. And it's not just because he's favored to go 1. That matters. Obviously, when you see movement at sports books, that matters. He moved to minus 140, and Hunter moved him plus 500. Carter is plus 125, which means sports books think that they're almost certain that if the Titans keep the pick, they take Carter or Cam Ward. Because plus 500, I mean, it's great odds if you think Hunter is going to go first, but you'd have to think about it from a perspective of if they trade up, no one's taking Hunter 1 to trade up. You're doing it for a quarterback. So that's number 1. And number 2, if they keep the pick and they're already getting information that Hunter will not be selected first, that's something we have to take into account as well. Because they're not dumb. Sportsbooks know everything. It's so hard to beat sportsbooks on this. They have inside information. They have all this stuff. I'm sure you guys saw that story today about Chauncey Porter and the Hull College thing as well. Like they were running that college ring with Temple, Eastern Michigan. That was pretty crazy. I was going to make a video on that, but it would have got no views. The TikTok algorithm's weird in that sense, where if I post something completely different than something I've posted before, it might get 100 views. And in the off season from fantasy football, it's been really hard to get views and followers when it's not like a huge news type of concept. But during the season, like you could be talking about Terrell Owens' son who was on the practice squad on the 49ers, and you could say fantasy value in dynasty league, deep dynasty league, and that would get like 50,000 views, 100,000 views. Let's see. You don't know what to do if you were the Titans GM. Dude, I'd probably trade back, honestly. Like, I like Cam Ward a lot, but I just think they need way more. Bad offensive line, bad defensive line, pretty much, besides Simmons, right? Like, secondary got better. It improved immensely. They were great against the pass last season. Stopping the run will be pivotal for this team. So that's why I can see, like, Carter, too. Like, getting more of a pass rush will help, too. So you could keep the pick and take Carter, but if you trade back to 6, let's say the Raiders trade up and give you their first round pick next year, and you have your own first round pick and you only move back to 6, I would just kind of roll with Tet McMillan at that point. I know you have Ridley and Westbrook Kine like balled out, and you'd have to roll with Will Levis. But Ted McMillan kind of fits what Will Levis wants to do, and that's throw the ball downfield. Now he makes a ton of mistakes, but Ted would be a great fit in Tennessee. You could have Ridley as the 2, Ted as the 1. Like it would make a lot of sense offensively, because I think the running backs are good. Like I think Tyjae Spears is kind of an underrated guy. I think him and Pollard are one of the best tandems in the league that I think gets overlooked because they were so bad this year. But I do think I do think that that's a team that could trade back and still get Tet. Yeah, I mean, you either stay at 1, you take Ward or Carter, or you trade back and you get Tet. Commanders should draft Hampton. They could. They're not. They're going to take an edge rusher for sure, or a defensive tackle, especially with the Allen news. Like I would almost guarantee you, like I would take all of my life's earnings and almost guarantee you that they will take an edge rusher D lineman at 29, because Shamar Stewart should be available, Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant, one of them may be available. Derek Harmon may be available, and on the edge, Scourton should be available. Like there's so many, and like B-Rob wasn't bad, it's fine. I've never been a big B-Rob guy to begin with, but like I mean, the guy's got toughness and moxie. He literally got shot and played 4 weeks later. So like that's a guy that I can rely on. And that matters at the running back position. You don't want a prima donna. It's a guy that's going to put his body on the line for you. Like that matters. And he played well. He stepped up in a lot of big games. So I don't think that's like central to the issue they have, because Jaden runs a lot anyways. Yeah, B-Rob's just not like, he's just solid, but yeah. Tell me I'm wrong. Most underrated player in the draft, Jaden Higgins. Dude, you don't have to tell me. Have you seen my recent videos? I'm the biggest Jaden Higgins fan of any content creator on planet Earth. I think he's the 3rd ranked wide receiver in this draft behind Tet McMillan and Luther Burden. If we don't include Hunter, if we do, he's 4th. I like him better than Emeka. I like him better than Trey Harris. I think he's Nico Collins almost. Like I think he's going to be an absolute steal. I think at worst he's Michael Pittman Jr. Let's see. Titans and Browns taking a QB. Giants don't need edges out. Titans and Browns are not taking a QB. This myth that the Browns are going to take a quarterback at 2 is ridiculous. Like I don't think they even, unless Abdul Carter goes 1, they are not taking a quarterback at 2. Because if they want Abdul Carter, but if Abdul Carter goes 1, yeah, I mean, I think they take Ward probably, but if Cam Ward goes 1, there's a 0% chance the Browns go Shedeur Sanders. I don't care what Adam said. I mean, Adam says a ton of stuff 2 months before the draft that's not true. Like stuff changes. Sure, they want a quarterback. They could always do that scenario where they take Carter and then they trade back up into the 1st round and get Jackson Dart, like I said, because I think Jackson Dart's really good. I think he's underrated. Yeah. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to say who cares. That's a good note, man. I don't want you to be sad. I'm just saying, like Adam also gets paid to follow kind of like people give him false information 2 months before the draft to make people think that something's going to happen. Like remember last year, Adam was saying for the longest time, I think even till a week before the draft, that Drake May was going to go 2. Right? I believe he was the person that was saying that for like the longest time. He was saying Drake May at 2 is like, yeah, Commanders are going to take Drake May for the longest time. And then like a week before the draft, he's like, okay, it's Jaden Daniels. They've been linked to him for a while. So it was conflicting reports. So teams a lot of times lie to these reporters and to try and, help their cause. But yeah, I mean, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter falling to the Patriots would be ideal, but worst case scenario, let's play out the scenario. Let's say Cam goes 1, Abdul Carter goes 2, and the Giants draft Hunter instead of Shedeur. And you're sitting there at 4, and Will Campbell, Tet McMillan, Ashton Genty, and Shedeur are the best players available, basically, in other teams' minds in terms of value. Now, I don't even have Shedeur top 50, but other people think Shedeur is a top 10 pick, and he'll probably go in the top 10. You can probably get 6 and 37, or at least 6 in a round 2 or round 3 from the Raiders to move up 2 spots. You move back 2 spots, you take Will Campbell at 6. That's not the end of the world. Like Will Campbell at worst can be an all-pro guard. Like even if his hands or his like wingspan is too short to play tackle at the NFL level, which I think he could play football at a high level. Like I think he's at worst an all-pro guard. If he can't stick at tackle, you could do that, and then you can take a receiver like Jaden Higgins in round 2 for Drake May. I do think they are probably a team that will look at Trevion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins or Devin Neal. Like they're going to take a running back too. But I do think that the Patriots' best case scenario is either trading back or one of them falls. Like I think they either take Carter or Hunter, and if neither are there, they trade back and then take Campbell. That's probably what's going to happen. If I had to guess, let's see. Commanders fan or Russ? A lot of people got mad at me, dude, because I think the Commanders, you're going to hate me for saying this. I think they might take a step back next year. They won a lot of close games, a lot of close games, a lot. And to me, that's a little bit concerning. Like, I still don't love their roster, even though they have a ton of cap space. Obviously, we have to see what they do with it. But I do think that, the tougher schedule next season, I do think they probably take a little step back. Like, I think they win 8 or 9 games probably and not like 11, 12. And I know we all are infatuated with like, oh, they were great last year. We did the same thing with Houston where we were like, Houston's going to be great next season. Like Houston's going to be excellent. And they took a step back. I'm not saying the Commanders or Jaden will be the same thing as Stroud and the Texans. I'm just saying, like, be prepared for that possibility because we a lot of times at this point in the season think teams are going to be great. Like the Niners, they're going to get back to the Super Bowl, like we were saying last year. Like they got the roster to do it. They didn't even make the playoffs. You know what I mean? So we got to be careful with like that. That's a hot take I have, but I think the Commanders take a step back. Don't love their roster. I think they got, I wouldn't say lucky because Jaden's a killer. Like he's got that killer instinct, but I do think they take a little bit of a step back. Lakers in 5. Dude, Lakers might do it. I hope. We'll see how they do tonight against Dallas, but it's still like Jackson Hayes is your starting center against OKC and against Denver in the playoffs kind of scares me. I'm not going to lie. I know, man. I'm just saying the possibility. Like I think the Giants will improve a lot, even without a quarterback. Honestly, if Travis or Abdul don't fall, I'd like to pay Josh Simmons. Dude, I'd be careful with Josh Simmons. High upside guy, but remember, he played at San Diego State, didn't play a lot of competition. Then before he got hurt at Ohio State, his tape was great, but he didn't play anybody. He's one of the only tackles with prototypical size and length. So I can see why people are infatuated with him. And I'm sure that he'll probably go top 15, top 20, but he's a risky prospect. OKC, KFC, UFC, Lakers in 5. Yeah, dude, Shannon's hilarious. Shannon's great TV, bro. You can say what you want about these people on ESPN and a lot of these like Stephen A. and like don't get me started on Kendrick Perkins and a lot of the basketball coverage. But like Shannon Sharp specifically, even though he has some horrendously bad takes, great TV. He's an entertainer. And that's kind of what like Pat McAfee is just an entertainer. Like Pat McAfee is some of the dumbest takes I've ever heard in my life, but he's an entertainer. He's great TV. Like that matters in the industry. What do you think about Josh Connerly? I like Josh Connerly. I don't like him as much as other people, to be honest. Like I think Ursary is like the hidden gem in the draft, the tackle from Minnesota, because I think he can stick a tackle. But I do think that, I do think Ursary is the guy. I don't love Connerly, though. Also, it's kind of weak class. Do you think anyone will want to trade up for a quarterback? Yeah. Cam Ward's the prize. Like the Shador hype is a little oversaturated in my opinion. Like I think it's people are a little too hot and too high on Shador Sanders. But I think Cam Ward is the hidden gem. He's like the quarterback. If you don't get Cam Ward, I don't think it's worth trading up in this draft unless you're at the end of the first and you can give up less compensation and still go get a Jackson Dart. Yeah, and it's not a deep class particularly either at quarterback. Like Jalen Milroe can't throw a football on target, but he's an insane athlete and has a good arm. So, I mean, he could, right situation, he sits 2 years, he could be solid. Will Howard's NFL ready, but provides virtually no upside. But he is 6'4". McCord has a good arm, but McCord was horrible at Ohio State a few years ago. Gabriel is 5'8", 5'9". Like I doubt he's even 5'10". That's a problem. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to like really say this quarterback class besides Cam Ward is good. Yeah. Tommy Malo for Montana State. Oh, the FCS quarterback. Yeah, he's good. Did he declare? Oh yeah, well he had to. He's a senior, right? Yeah, I don't think he gets drafted. The guy I think that's going to rise up boards after the combine is Smith, Donovan Smith. He's not a great quarterback, but he's 6'5" and he runs so fast. He's like 235 to 240. We'll see. I mean, Tommy Malo could be a guy that does well in the CFL for a year and then becomes a backup quarterback in the NFL. Like I think he could, because people will knock him even though he was a winner at Montana State. Like people will knock him for not playing in the FBS. People are petrified of taking FCS quarterbacks after Trey Lance, as they should be. I think Trey could actually still be good. I'll die on that hill. I don't think he was given enough opportunities. He's still younger. He's only a year. He's not even a few months older than Jane Daniels, I believe. They're almost the same age. I think that's another thing that people don't really realize is the reason why Cam Ward will be good in the NFL probably right away and why he can start is because he played like 79 games in college. Like we always talk about, okay, quarterback Anthony Richardson, prime example. Talent off the charts, only played a year or two in college. Okay. Bo Nix, great right away. Why? Played a bazillion games in college. Jay Daniels, good. Why? Played a bazillion games in college. Like that's why maybe Drake May and Caleb Williams played a few less games than those two guys. Might take a little longer for them to reach their potential, even though they were excellent in college. And this is why Dylan Gabriel could be productive right away, even at 5'9". He's played a bazillion games. He can read defenses. Experience matters. I think scouts are so reluctant now to take quarterbacks that are projects. They don't want to just take guys that haven't played. Like the reason why Shador is even in the top 10 in some conversations is because he played 70 plus games. It's not even about the talent. It's just like he has a resume. Like he played 5 seasons in college football. Which is why Arch, people will want to start this 2026 process and be like, okay, Arch, he's going to be the number one pick. Don't be so sure. Even if he's the presumptive number one overall pick, if Arch doesn't go back to school, he could go back to school for his senior year after next season and be in the 2027 draft and be more prepared for the NFL because he's going to make 8 to 10 million in NIL minimum, right? So I'm just saying, I think that that's valued. The college snaps, like playing a lot of college, is valued in the modern NFL. Like that's important. So with quarterback prospects, I think it's more about that than anything. This is why Bo Nix was good right away and Jane Daniels played 5 years in college. And why Drake May kind of took him half a season to figure it out and probably into next season is like played 2 years. Caleb Williams, 2 years, I don't know. That's 2.5, I guess, for Caleb Williams. That's kind of how I view it. Like Michael Penix should be good right away. Played a bazillion years at college. Like that's why he was good when he came in for the Falcons. Like that matters. Anyways, y'all, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna post a few videos on Jackson Dart and who I think could trade up for the first overall pick. Make sure you look at all my pages: X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and follow me. I appreciate the support. I love all you guys, and I hope you guys have an excellent day. I'll be back on probably with the stream later, specifically on TikTok.